teachers who matched with one of their students on Tinder. What's your story? My youngest brother, 24, matched up with a seemingly nice girl on Tinder. They started dating afterwards. She was a probation officer for the county and had been doing it for a few years. My brother was and is currently on probation for arson. They were together for about 6 months when they came to dinner at my place, during which I asked her about her job. She told me she is a probation officer. I then asked her if them being together is a problem since he is on probation. She froze for a good minute, then said she didn't know that he was on probation. The rest of dinner was awkward. Couple weeks later, when talking to my brother, he told me that she decided to stay with him, even though it was against the rules for her job. I guess she was hoping they would never find out, but they did. Less than a week later, she got fired and will probably never work in that field again. My brother broke up with her the next month. He had the nerve to tell me that he broke up with her because she was being lazy, had no money, and was depressed a lot. I told him he was a giant effing scumbag. I don't think he even understood why she was depressed. He did not feel bad at all and didn't think he was to blame, even a little bit. He is a big piece of sh. I unmatched with them as soon as I realized who it was. We still had a month left in the semester, and she never brought it up. I teach in higher ed, so it's legal, but definitely not worth the headaches and professional fallout it could potentially cause. My roommate unknowingly matched with a guy who had just graduated from the school where I taught. It was a kind of funny passing comment of "oh, I matched with a guy who graduated from X school." We both assumed that it wouldn't be one of my students because I taught sophomores for the most part and this kid was a graduated senior, so we figured it was a funny coincidence rather than weird. She invited him over to our place to hang out. He walked in and introduced himself before he and my roommate went to hang out in her room and watch a movie. I had to text my roommate that the kid had obviously lied about something because A, he was current senior, not a graduated one, and B, I'd had him as a student in my newspaper class. Turned out he lied about his age, said he was 19, and pretended that he didn't know me despite the fact he had class with me. Nice kid, but he never got invited around again. Oh damn. This just happened to a regular at my local. We are there having drinks, as we often do, and he starts telling me that he matched with his 8th grade English teacher, who was 24 when he was 13. Not a crazy age difference, so they chatted and laughed about the coincidence and how weird it was, but they ended up talking for hours about life, how they are both divorced, decided what the hell and agreed to meet at our bar that night. She was there like an hour later. She seemed super fun and looked great for 46. They sat next to me and my wife and we all had fun talking, but then they moved to a booth to be alone. 90 minutes and good amount of shots later, they are kissing in the booth. About 10 minutes later, they are paying their tab and ordering a car to the nearest bedroom. It's been about 3 weeks and they are still hanging out. They really like each other. It's kinda creepy but sweet. He seems happier than usual, so kinda not really what you're asking for, but never had the chance to tell this story. So, when I was 12 years old, my English teacher had a medical emergency and was out for 4 months. We had a long-term sub. His name, no joke, was MR. Love, and he was gorgeous, maybe 25, built, preemie dark skin, a voice like an angel, and he cared about every single student he had. He was the epitome of every middle school girl's hormonal fantasy. 10 years later, I'm on the bus going to work. I'm in a committed relationship and pregnant but not showing yet. Who gets on the bus? MR. Love. The only empty seat is next to me, so he takes it. We ride in silence for a moment, but before I can figure out how to break the ice, he turns to me and starts working his, still apparent, charm. I've never seen you here before. Do you go this way often? You're a very beautiful woman to be traveling on your own. You know, I'd love to take you out for coffee sometime. At that point, I couldn't stop myself. I said, did you sub for an English class 10 years ago? Because if your name is MR. Love, I was one of your students. I thought you were so attractive back then. He balked at that and got off the bus at the next stop. Way before Tinder, we had a HS teacher, an way older male who taught math, have an affair with a female student. She was a senior that turned 18 at the end of the school year, but they had been together over a year. He and his wife divorced, and he married the 18-year-old. He was allowed to keep teaching, and when she graduated college she was hired as a teacher in the same school in his department. Of course this was in the late 1970s and I graduated in 1982, but I had them both as teachers. I once drunk splurged on Tinder Gold, or whatever it's called, and noticed my current intern had swiped right on me. Yeah, I had to ignore that one for a while, all the while keeping that secret for the rest of semester. I went on a date a couple weeks ago with a former student. I was an adjunct prof and she was in my class. I thought she was cute and I had a suspicion she was queer too, but obviously wasn't going to do anything while I was teaching. When she came up on Tinder, I'm no longer teaching university. I swiped right and we matched. She is only a couple years younger than me though, and the class was a couple years ago. We're hopefully going out again soon and we'll see what happens. Awkward at first, but once I got over the fact I was homeschooled, we went back to our place for extra credit. I'm a resident and I've matched with a few medical students, but so far none of them have been under me in their rotations. I matched with one of my online professors last semester. He has a unique name and once I realized who he was I unmatched, even if it's legal, and at our ages, it would be. It's still a small town and I didn't want to bring the drama on us. I matched with a teacher when I was 27 and she was 76. She said I knew you'd make it at least this far then unmatched me. 76-year-old on Tinder? Were you in a retirement home? You guys are getting matches? I teach university. A year or so after the end of the class she took under me, she pops up and laughed. I thought there'd be no way she yesed me, so I swiped right for giggles. Instant match. I couldn't believe it. Turns out she wanted to hook up the whole time but didn't want to open that can of worms. We went on a date, and she was by far the worst S of my life. Animal in bed? Oh yeah. Starfish. I unmatched us as soon as the notification came in and realized who it was. It's worse than being a teacher, a social worker. I used to work with teenage girls who had been trafficked and exploited. I had worked with this girl when she was 15. She had turned 22 or 23 and looked significantly different. I was just casually blasting through pictures and really hadn't spent much time investigating. I was having a quiet Friday night and drinking beer and playing a game, and suddenly my phone blows up and the girls is responding with how excited she was we matched, how into me she was, and how she wanted me to F her brains out. We talked about some weird, me doing weird, her doing weird to me, like intense stuff. Then she asked, can I call you Mr. Donkey Brains while you do? Insert weird. I kind of paused. I was like, WTF, I hadn't shared my last name. So I asked her how she knew it. She jokes about being offended I didn't remember her, and it all suddenly kicked my drunk brains in and I felt physically sick. She had been through some stuff, and I couldn't help but think about that trauma and how it likely related to her eagerness to do the weird I enjoy doing in bed. And how maybe that had also been true for past FWB and girlfriends and I just hadn't realized it at the time. She pushed the issue a little bit more, but I told her I hadn't put two and two together and just thought she was an attractive woman. But it would be 100% inappropriate for me to have that relationship. Not Tinder, but teacher related. I had a friend who was up for anything, flirted with everyone, hooked up with anyone. Give him a dare and he'd do it before you finished talking. Full of crazy ideas and no limits. Any girl could walk up to him and kiss him out of the blue and he'd be on board immediately. Lots of fun, and we all assumed there would be nothing he'd say no to. Until one night we all walked into a bar in our early 20s and a girl danced up to him for some close quarters work. Without a pause he immediately turned around, handed his full drink to a stranger, said we're leaving and walked out without turning around to see if we were behind him. After about half a block of fast walking he told us she had been a student of his last year and still attended his school. He teaches grade 10 math. Even though drinking age is only 19 here, she obviously got in with fake ID. One of the group made a joke about him getting so freaked out BC he must have been in trouble for hooking up with a student before, and the lecture he rounded on him about taking advantage of kids when you're in a position of authority made it clear that he wasn't scared of repercussions. It was his limit. The one thing he wouldn't do, ever. This story comes from pre-Tinder days, but I'm the product of a student and her second year maths lecturer. Student and lecturer ended up getting married, starting a family and growing old together. But there was some serious fallout. Lecturer's supervisor decided student was a harlot and tried to manipulate the entire maths department into flunking her. When nobody would comply, he kept trying until the day she had to call in sick for her final honors exam. She verbally told supervisor she was in hospital and unable to attend. Supervisor said it was fine and she could make it up when she was well. The next week she rocked up, ready to take the exam, only to be told she'd flunked and there was no second chance to sit the exam. He denied all knowledge of the conversation. Student still managed second class honors. Despite all this, as someone who is actively on Tinder and who works in high schools, it's frightening how often you'll see someone's profile with the age set at mid-20s, but the first line of the profile is actually 16 or something. I have my age filters set to 25-37. Students in high school will set their birth dates to something wrong to get around that because there's so many, mostly ugly, girls who want a sugar daddy and are not afraid to put that in writing. As mentioned above with the first line of profile text, the second line is usually looking for something really sweet or similar. Then finally, 16 photos of bikinis and lingerie. I report every one of them, and if I'm at a school and see the student, I report them to student services, the main office. Didn't match, but I saw one of my students on Tinder, saying they were 20 when they most definitely were not. I informed the parents that I'd received an anonymous tip that either they were on Tinder or someone was using their photos. Not the story most people are looking for here, I'm sure, but the right thing to do. A story I heard from a friend was about a guy just starting his first year teaching out of college. He was in a high school math class or something like that. His first day teaching, he walked into class and saw the girl he had been casually seeing all summer. They had met at a college party, gone on multiple dates, and hooked up occasionally. She had a fake ID and pretended that she was a college student. Oh, not my teacher, but I matched with a middle school teacher when I was 18. He was hot and about 28. I quickly find out he's dominant. Score, now we are really talking. He confides in me his favorite kink, schoolgirl. What the F? Immediate unmatch.